Happy Friday! Welcome to another episode of Foresight TV. I am so glad you are here with this conversation. I'm talking to my friend Fee Stubblefield about leadership and the future of senior living. He does some stuff that's very different, that is really exciting and cool. He's spent a lot of time thinking about leadership, and so I'm really excited, and I feel honored to have you here. You've got a brand new book out that we want to talk about, and there's some more stuff coming up in the industry. So I'm going to have a hard time doing this in 30 minutes, so we're going to be speed talking. But first, this. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. Fee, welcome to Foresight TV. Let's start with a little bit about who you are. And I'd actually like to start, as part of that, I'd actually like to have you talk a little bit about your book and your story. I think it's really, really important because it really defines who you are as a leader.
Thanks, Steve. It's really great to be here and certainly to talk about what's in the book, which is just what we do every day. The book released at the end of June. It's been out for just about 30 days. It's doing very well in a lot of the business parent categories. But the book was written really for myself, for our company, so that someday, I've been the head of Springs Living for 28 years, and there will be a time when the ideas need to stay, but I don't, and that's not anytime soon. I'm more excited about where we're at, certainly in our organization, but also the industry too, than I've ever been. This has been the best time of my career, and it's the opportunity that we've all been waiting for, right? We've talked about these demographics coming our way, and there's 73 million baby boomers coming that are going to need the services of what we do in our profession. I like the word profession better than industry, and I think words matter. That'll come across in a culture of promise. So this is just a vulnerable story, a unique story, an authentic story. Sometimes it's hard to believe it actually happened to me, and it's a little bit of it's certainly a business book told in story, and actually what it truly happened. And so I'm proud of it. I certainly see it that it could be better, especially when I see a 1 or 2 star or 3 star rate. No 1 stars, but a 2 star and a couple 3 stars in there. And then I agree with their reviews. So it's like, gosh, I'm going to have to write another book eventually to try to get a little bit better. But yeah, I think it holds some important messages for the times.
So you start out by talking about 2 kinds of promises, and I want to dig into those 2 promises. One of them, obviously I'm a lot, as you are, a lot more, in some sense, one's a lot more interesting than the other, but I think it's important to talk about both. So you want to hit those?
The 2 promises that you're talking about, Steve, are aspirational promises and business promises. It's like 2 sides of a coin. And I think a lot of times we struggle in this profession, especially between capital and then what goes on in these dynamic environments where we promise to take care of people. Struggle about we've got to be nice and care for people. At the same time, we've got to get the financial results and the returns, right? We have to fulfill our business promises. We take capital from partners as operators, and we've got to give it back with something more, and we got to steward it and take care of it. And we do complex things around health services and medications, and we have accounting gap rules to follow. So there's certain promises they're not personal promises. They're just business promises that we have to fulfill. But we have to do that with the kind of the warm or the fluffy cushions like you would have in your favorite chair in your living room. We've got to have that soft leather stuffing around those business promises, which are our structure, because we deal with people and we deal with our promise, right? Our industry promises, we will take care of you. That is a judgment-based promise that is different. It's very different for different customers. And so it's dynamic. It can be messy. But the reason I think the aspirational promise is the key part here, which is really important for our profession, is that we're dealing with we always have with high turnover rates. And it's a profession where people come to us because they have problems. We're a business, we're an industry of problems. People already have real estate. They already have a place to live. They already have, they can already go out to a restaurant. We are not hospitality. They've already got all those other things, but they don't have help in solving the problems that come with aging, right? The gravity and time. And so we come into these communities and work and let's just take the food service area. A chef will come from a restaurant, maybe because they want better hours or, a different lifestyle, or they had an impact of a family member and they want to work in senior housing and have a sense of purpose more than just feeding people. They want to do both, but they come in and they hear constantly complaints, because it's hard. I mean, it's not like a restaurant where people go to different restaurants all the time. They're there for the most part 3 times a day. And you're trying to meet an average, the average of all the needs, and you're trying to respond to people, but you're dealing with medication issues that deal with people's taste, cognitive functioning. And you hear a lot of complaints, and that can cause people to run screaming from the building saying, I can't take it anymore. Because, I don't know how it was in your home, Steve, but we were pushed to, don't mess up, do it right and do good. And, hopefully you hear praise and not a lot of criticism because you're doing well. But actually what we do is the opposite. We hear a lot of criticisms. And if we didn't, we probably wouldn't be doing it right, because that's just the nature of the business. So an aspirational promise says, we're going to promise to take care of you. We know an aspirational promises always fall short. We have to realize that we can't fulfill them. People moving in our communities have problems. It's going to be challenging. We will let them down. The only way you fulfill it is by running to the fire, by never stop solving the problems and normalizing that, so that our teams and the people that work in the communities get excited about problems and solving problems, because that's what we're a business of, is problems. And on one hand, you could say, well, that sounds kind of negative, Fee, but I don't think it does. I think it's hopeful, because then we can get busy structuring our systems and our businesses to hunt down problems and fix them for people.
So there's so much for me that I want to unpack, but a couple of things that I wonder about is, particularly with dining services, I wonder if we set ourselves up for more complaints than we need to, in that we set false expectations. I mean, as a kid, when you were growing up, I assume your mom probably did most of the cooking. I know that's not always the case, but in most families, that's still true today, right? And sometimes mom served your favorite stuff and you could hardly wait and you'd eat it until it was gone. And other times she'd serve stuff that maybe nobody liked or only other people liked, and you ate it because you knew it was nourishment and you were hungry and you ate it. And I wonder a lot if we would do so much better if we talked about it in the context of home and say, not every day you're going to get your favorite thing. I have a good friend of mine who does selling in senior living, and he's really, really careful about that. And he's found that over the years, by saying, sometimes the meals are going to be great, sometimes they're not going to be your favorite thing when the main entree, but there's always this other menu. And he finds they get less complaints. But the thing that I really loved about your book more than anything else, I just, it made me fall in love with the book and your leadership style, is that you said you love complaints because it's an opportunity to get better, and we should embrace them rather than hate them.
We should. I think there's a line in the book that I had a resident for one of our communities come up to me. I saw her at an event, and she motioned me over, and she said she finished the book in 2 days. She loved the book because, and the biggest thing she said that was impactful to me is that she says, I feel like I know you. But she said, I laughed out loud when you made the statement in there that the only thing that senior living has in common with a restaurant is that they serve food, right? So we have to have food. It's more like home. You're exactly right. We've known that for years. And all my colleagues out there that are listening to this, we talk about that all the time, because that's what it is. It doesn't always go well at home, and it doesn't go well in our communities all the time. But I think that we're probably measuring our expectations around food service maybe not completely accurately, meaning we all give these surveys that say rate your food on a scale of 1 to 5, right?
Yeah.
And gosh, if you're 3.5 or better, that's pretty darn good. But I don't think and everybody's talking about the taste, right? What they like. Is it like my mom made it, my wife made it, my husband made it, my friend made it? And I think I'm wondering if the real measurement is not the perception of the quality of the food, the taste of the food. We want to have excellent food, of course, but it's more about the engagement of the residents engaging in the conversation about food, which is a huge part of our day, and how they interact with that, and how you continue this promise. We call it a promise life cycle of identifying problems and limiters, and you get every iteration you get better. I mean, I've been doing this for 28 years, and sometimes I wake up and going, "Oh my God, is this can we move this along faster?" But it's aspirational promises and business promises. We have to keep those both in mind. We have those two promises, and they both have to be fulfilled. They both do.
So I want to come back to this aspirational promises and capital. And one of the things I want to spend a little time on is, I think that one of the challenges that I hear from operators is that the capital partners really only care about money. And so they don't see the bigger picture. And you seem to, in your book, sort of suggest that you can actually get the capital partners to sort of embrace the aspirational part of it. Before I get there, though, I set you up, and then I'm going to take you away from that. I think, I can't remember whether it was your book or something else I read in the last couple of days, and they were talking about how if you go to a restaurant and it has great food, I mean, it's 5-star food, and the experience is terrible, you're never going to come back. And yet, if you go to a restaurant that has just okay food and the experience is great, you'll come back over and over again. And to me, that just really resonated. Was that in your book, or was that someplace else I read that?
I think that was somewhere else. It's a great concept, though. Yeah.
So I want to back up one more thing, and then we're going to come back to capital. You talked earlier on about this demographic wave that's coming in. And one of the things that I worry a lot about is that people will get sloppy because they look at that and say, I've got this, I'm going to have more business than I know what to do with. And so I actually don't have to be as concerned about these culture things, these quality of care things. Do you worry about that for the industry?
Of course. I mean, that's not true, right? It's I'm reading Peter Thiel's new book, which is called 0 to 1. It's great. I think it has some great insight for us in our industry. He talks about this concept of vertical thinking and horizontal thinking. And so vertical thinking would be, listen, there's more baby boomers coming. Take the company, like even our company here in the Pacific Northwest, and then we're just going to do that, more of that in other places as just our growth strategy. That's not a sustainable model, and that's not what is going to solve and meet the needs of baby boomers. I mean, they're going to put us through, talk about problems. We're going to really have to understand this concept of limiters and aspirational promises to deal with them. But we need to, what he would call vertical thinking, is we need to think of other ways of solving that and growing our businesses. And it's got to focus on one thing, and that's quality, the interaction. This is a business different than any other business out there. And sometimes I wonder if we really understand what business we're in. I'm speaking for the industry, because this is taking care of it started with my grandmother, my parents, hopefully will be next to be supported. And then I'm thinking about the future, but this is us, it's our families, it's personal. We don't want to know that a company's got an EBITDA expectation they put out to the public market, and therefore that they're not going to, they're going to cut the food budget so they can hit their, we don't want to, we want our family taken care of with the time that they have becomes, time is so precious. And so I think we're going to have to think differently. We're going to have to think horizontally, not vertically, not horizontally here. Everything is getting ready to change. It is changing right now. The natural forces that are happening right now with the time with the the assisted living era, as Bob Kramer puts it, is done. We're on to a new era. COVID was certainly changed the landscape. This debt crisis right now is changing the landscape. And I would say that if people are resting on their laurels, that there's just a lot of baby boomers coming, I think that they could point to the current market conditions that show an industry occupancy rate in the mid 80s or low 80s when there's more than enough age and income demographics to fill every building, but people aren't going to move in unless you can meet their needs. They're not going to do it. They're going to either, procrastinate, they're going to wait. We can do better. We have to do better. Why does the state of Oregon have a 25% penetration rate for age and income qualified seniors, right? And the national average is somewhere probably in the, somewhere in a range by state, 11 to 15. And, there's a few states up in the 20s. This is about, we've got to meet people's needs, and people will come. They will want to come in, right? It's the want tos versus the have tos.
Yeah, and I love this so much. I mean, and I think this penetration rate variability is so important to look at. And there are really two parts of it in my mind. The first part is actually creating great experiences. At some point, there are so many people out there. I know you got me on my soapbox, right? There's so many people out there who are living at home by themselves or with a spouse, and they're lonely like crazy, and they just are waiting to die because they don't have a high quality of life. And if they moved into a senior living community, they would have amazing, amazing life experiences in those last chapters that they can't even imagine right now. And that's the other part of the challenge, I think, is don't seem to be very good about telling the story about how amazing life is. We need more people saying, I was living at home. I met this salesperson who gave me this promise, this aspirational promise that my life would be better when I moved. I was pretty skeptical, but I was struggling at home, and I decided I'd try it. And I went in, and it changed my life. And I've just traveled your whole triangle of, let me get it right, decision to move, decision to stay, and aspirational living. So I'm going to use that to kick that off, and I'd like to have you talk about that because I love that concept.
That concept we call the 3D vision framework is really a way to think about our business and really think about people's process of making decisions, because one of the things I've learned in my career is that most of us take a long time to make decisions. We want to make the right decisions, and a lot of us don't even want to make the decision. So people in the marketing side of the world, the sales side of the world, our job is to really understand the needs of those people, make sure that we can meet those needs of the people, and then help them make a decision that we truly believe in and that meets their needs of their family in an area that they can afford. Not over-promising, but making sure we align that we can fulfill our promise. All cultures come from the promise they make to their customers. Our customers is, we will take care of you. So the 3D vision framework is very simple. It's a Venn diagram of the three-legged stool, right? And the three stakeholders that we think about in our business are obviously our customers, our residents that live with us, that we take care of, our employees, which actually they're the ones that take care of the residents, we don't. And then obviously the investors, the business side of it, capital, equity, debt, and where we have to live as leaders in this industry is right in that center point. We have to keep that perfect balance between think of the three-legged stool, right? Any leg is off balance, you're going to be unstable. And so our job is to be guardians of that galaxy and manage all those things to meet the needs and set the expectations up right so that we can fulfill our promise to each one of those. And the way that we found to do that is to really look at the limiters, like, okay, so we call it 3D because it's a dimension, three-dimensional. We want to do more than just a photocopy. We want to be the real thing. And so we talk about looking at our business, all of us, whether you're a resident or an employee or even an investor, you go through the same process. I promise you our investors and our employees and our residents go through the same thing when they start looking at either living, working, or investing in the Springs. And the first thing is they're trying to make one decision, just one decision. Is that I'm gonna move, right? I'm gonna take the job there. But every time a new employee takes a job, I promise you, in their head, we've all done it. I've done it. We say, okay, I'm gonna take the job, but we'll see if I stay. right? We'll see. We'll see if they're true to their promises. So that really sets up the second one, because our residents do that too. We'll move in. We'll see if they fulfill their promises. The next thing we're trying to do in the process is get them just to make a decision to then stay. And a lot of organizations, most organizations in our industry, do a really good job of getting people to move in and then to stay for the most part. But we really want to get to that third dimension where life is full, and that's the decision to thrive and to live their life with a sense of purpose, which goes to what you talked about. Maslow and his hierarchy explains that. Is, we start off on one side of Maslow's mountain, Steve, climbing up the mountain as, our parents help us with physiological needs. We move out of the house, we get a job, someday we get a vacation, we move past, safety into love and belonging. And then eventually we reach the pinnacle, like you, of self-actualization. You've got your purpose. This is what you do. You make the industry better by bringing thought leadership together and challenging ideas and putting them out there, and you're self-actualized. Well, we're up on the mountain. We get there. And then what happens? Time, gravity starts pulling us down, and there is nothing we can do about it. The other side of Maslow's pyramid, right? And then our family comes home sometime around Thanksgiving or Christmas and finds out that all we're doing is eating ice cream and toast, and our prescriptions haven't been filled. And what do? They call us, right? And say, help. My mom can't, the doc says they can't stay in their house anymore. So they call us, and what do? We try to move them into our community where we pair them with another group. This other group is now, they're just starting their journey up the first side of the mountain of Maslow's hierarchy. And they're these kids, people that are invulnerable, they're trying to get their footing under them. They're trying to learn, they're working, trying to find their purpose. They're trying to find a career. They're trying to be self-actualized. And what we do is we stick these two vulnerable groups together, and our entire industry is rated on the interaction 24/7, 365 between our care staff, our direct care staff, and our residents. And everything else, those business promises, must be in service to. In a culture of promise and an enrichment culture, which we can talk about that later, you can read in the book, everything is in service to that interaction right there. And if we lose focus on that, we've got trouble. That's the key to success.
Yeah, absolutely correct. And it's one of the things that I hear people talk a lot about. I'm going to sort of come back to this capital side of this because I think this is such an important thing. Is that people say, well, you can either care about residents or you care about profits, as if those are opposite. And to me, the path to profit is to care about your residents and your team like crazy. And that's where you're going to have your best margins. And so it honestly, it drives me crazy when I hear that. Am I getting this wrong? Am I missing something?
I think the discussion around the Snyder cultural model offers us great insight for both capital and operators to truly understand how to bridge the gap there. Here's another way to think of it. I think a lot of times we look at capital and these businesses, and we even get invested by private equity or public companies, and they look at it as a normal business without maybe going to the next level of understanding the cultural sensitivities. Now, this isn't all of them. Clearly, I've had some really good fortune of being with capital providers that understand and support what we're doing and understand our business plan and what we're doing. And it's been spectacular. But there is no doubt that there's a lot that do not understand it. They look at it more like, we're stamping out widgets in the factory, and it's an investment into something that's a manufacturing process. What we should turn our focus to the agricultural industry, because we're more like the agricultural industry than we are the financial industry or the manufacturing industry. We are, or even the hospitality industry, because in agriculture, which I know something about because I have agricultural businesses and investments, and I at first I never really saw how they were similar, but they are very similar because, let's just take which I don't have orchards, but let's use an orchard as an example. somebody goes out and plants an orchard, right? They're going to get some rootstock. They're going to have a field. They're going to prepare. It's dirty, messy work. They're going to grow these trees, but it's years, right? It's what, 3, 5, 7 years before you get really good crops and you start getting a return on your investment. Now, they put a lot of money and time into the ground because they knew that if they did it right, you'd get these golden apples coming off the trees.
Yep.
We are exactly the same, except we're not getting golden apples. We're getting golden relationships. We grow relationships because once you establish, we build really large, for the most part, large communities, 250 unit sized, a couple hundred unit size, which to some people seems risky. To me, it doesn't. It seems, I can't imagine, it seems the opposite, not risky, but it takes time. And so once you have your reputation solidified, the relationships, the team, it takes years to build teams and chemistry. It takes, even if you can do it, it takes years, even if it's the best team in the world. And so it just is dirty and dark, and it's time when you open a new building or take over a building. It takes time, and you're growing relationship with the community, your employees. And so I just think that agriculture offers us a better way to think about that. And it offers the capital side, the debt and the equity, a very accurate way, because there's a lot of, agriculture in the United States is a very well-developed system of capital investment and debt structures. And we should be looking at it more like that than we do how I think we do right now. I think that is a revolutionary idea that can change this. It can change what we do.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree, and I love the way you talk about it. And I agree with you 100%. We need to look at the big picture on all of this. It makes all the difference in the world. We're almost out of time. I have 2 things I want to talk about. I know there's some upcoming stuff in the news you want to talk about, and I don't know what it is, so I'm really excited to hear about that. But one of the things you talk about in the book, off and on, and I kind of struggled with a little bit because you'd actually, if I have a criticism, is you didn't define this well, and at least I didn't understand it. I think I got a picture, and that's talk about.
This is the question I was waiting for, Steve. This is the Steve question.
Actually, oh man, I didn't even ask you that question. We're going to run a little long on this. I got to ask you that question too. But let's go finish the one I have. Limiters. Tell me what limiters are. Would you define those?
Yeah. There's in-depth in the book. This is so important. Limiters are, as a profession, we haven't figured out our limiters. This is an idea that came from my partnership with Harrison Street and conversations with the founder of Harrison Street, who used to be CEO of Motorola, Chris Galvin. Limiters are where we don't have capacity we don't understand the things that limit us from growth, right? Let's take it back to agriculture. You grow a plant, you start it in a little pot. A limiter is that pot. If you don't replant it into a bigger pot, the roots are going to die and you're done. You're going to outgrow your quality. And that's a key concept of the quality growth curve in the book.
So is the idea that you break through the limiters, or that you have to work around them, or is it
expand them? You expand them. You invest in them. You invest in them, right? That's one of the reasons why we have the strategic pillar, capital for operations, as part of the NIC strategic plan, because we have to understand and invest in expanding the limiters that are keeping our quality from growing. We're just trying to grow through more real estate. How many more times do we have to do this and prove that it doesn't work? It's just, my God, can we just stop it?
Yeah. Okay.
It's not going to work. There's people with plenty of money out there buying buildings right now. I'm just telling you, it's not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Okay. Here's my really hard question. So I was at this conference. I was fairly early on in doing this thing. And this guy I knew, he walked over with this young woman and said, "You got to meet her." Her name is Kimberly. That's Kimberly. So no, I'm not telling who it is. And Kimberly's doing these amazing things in her communities. She was the chief operating officer, and mostly nursing homes. And so I looked at her and I said, I said, "Well, what do you do?" She said, "Oh, we really care for our residents. We really care for our team." And I looked at her and I realized I was so rude, but I'm going to do it again to you, right? I almost didn't realize I was rude. I said, "So everybody says that. What do you actually do that's different? So what do you do that's different?"
Yeah. Everybody does. Everybody does say the same thing. Of course they do, and I believe a lot of people mean it. But I'll just leave you with this. Maya Angelou said, "I'm not going to remember what you say or you do, but how you make me feel."
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we know as humans, we know when somebody's genuine and working to help, and we know when somebody's saying the things they know so that they can get in our pocketbooks.
Well, and I think what Ann said about being real is such a big part of it. And the other thing I would say to you, and it sounds like you're a little bit of a skeptic, but as I was sort of preparing for today's conversation, I took a look at your Glassdoor ratings, and you're right at 4 out of 5, and that's really a phenomenally high number. And I look at a lot of senior living star ratings. Most of them sort of sit down in the low threes. Occasionally they get below 3, which is really just discouraging. 4 is really amazing. It probably puts you in the top, I don't know, 5 or 10% of all companies, not just senior living. So to me, that's a big testament to what you're doing.
Yeah, that's great, but I am not a believer in Glassdoor. I think it's extortion. We've been through the whole deal. We panicked the first time that we saw 2 and 3 stars here and there. We've done everything from pay them to help us influence, where then we said, this is ridiculous. And we stopped paying them. We automatically dropped 2 points. To me, it doesn't matter what outside organizations like that say. You're always going to have people, especially with a high employee turnover, that something happens. You're always going to have those things. You want to solve those things. We're always open to our employees, but we've been there and done that. I don't trust them. I don't trust the Indeed ratings. I don't trust the Glassdoor. We just do what we do, and we don't pay to play. We take care of our people, and I mean, it's great that we're at a 4. I would have probably said we'd probably, if I would have guessed, probably would be at 3.2 to 3.5, because I used to watch it. It doesn't matter anymore to us. So
cool.
Anyway,
Good. Okay. So there's something big coming up this weekend that you want to talk about.
So set your so this Sunday on 60 Minutes, Pete Stavros, who is the co-founder and chairman of Ownership Works, and also the co-head of global private equity for KKR, is going to be on 60 Minutes. And why this is important is because he's also going to be at the fall session of the NIC. And we're going to do a main stage session where he's coming to talk to us. It'll be a fireside chat. He'll do a presentation, and then he and I will sit on stage and talk about his nonprofit, Ownership Works, which the concept is to really align. And you can go online and look at. He's got a great TED Talk out there too. It is really to align the interests of the rising tide lift all the boats. One of the things that we've taken several iterations at ourselves and are working on our third iteration of this right now is because we've been around 28 years. We have caregivers that have been with us 20 years. We have to have some safety net for them that have given their life in service to residents, so that and we've done a bunch of things, but we're trying to figure out how to do it better where it doesn't set up unintended consequences. So I'm just thrilled to get to be on stage with him. But the most important thing is that what this says about our profession, our industry, that Pete, who is a very high caliber, innovative thinker and creator, is coming to the NIC to have this conversation about our workforce and our employees, and which I believe personally is the key for us fulfilling our promise and creating our culture for our residents and our employees. And then as a byproduct, as investors, we get some returns, maybe.
Yeah, our mission is to improve the lives of people who live and work in senior living. My personal passion is much more the people who are doing the hard frontline work. I think there's so much more we can do as an industry to help them have amazing lives. And when we help them have amazing lives, they help residents have amazing lives, they help families have amazing lives, and they ultimately help the bottom line for everybody, and it makes the world a better place. So, Pete, we are way past time here. Thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation. I wish we had about another 3 hours to do this. We'll have to do it again sooner than later. And I will see you in person at Nick.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate you.